All right, I hope you're doing well. And I want you to take a look at the factoring polynomials chart today. This is sort of a checklist you can always go to and look for. First thing you do with any of your polynomials that you're trying to factor is look for a GCF. What is a GCF again? A GCF is a greatest common factor. So if you can find a greatest common factor, factor it out of that polynomial, and then go to your next step. And so if you follow this, it's sort of like a bubble system with branches off of it. And each branch takes you down a different path of factoring. So if you have two terms, really what you want to look for is a difference of squares, an a squared minus a b squared. Okay? And if you see that first branch, the two terms, anything that is a squared minus b squared is always going to factor to a plus b times a minus b. Okay? And so to check this out and to verify that your answers are always correct, you should always FOIL it out and then just see, did I get the original polynomial to start with in standard form? Right, so x squared minus 64, how am I going to figure that out? Well, I'm thinking that this is an a squared minus b squared. So I have to evaluate that in my head, think about that, and say, okay, what is the square root of x squared? Well, it's a single a. And in this case, that'll be an x. And then what's the square root of 64? What am I doing that for? Because if I take the b squared and square root it, the answer would be b. And I want the a plus b and the a minus b. So my a here was an x. And my b here in this case is going to be what? The square root of 64, which is going to be 8. So x plus 8 and x minus 8. All right. So the next one, all right, 18 I know is not a perfect square. But I notice between the two of these values, there's some things in common. 2 is a factor of 18. N is also a factor of n to the third. So I'm going to factor out a 2n, and then look what's left behind here. 2 times what is 18? That's going to be, I think, 9m squared. Do I need an n? No, I already have the n. Right. What else is going to be left behind? Minus, I'll need the 2 on the outside, but I'll need a n to the second. All right, so now I'm looking at this inside of the binomial like an a squared minus a b squared. So when I take the 9m squared and square root that, that's going to give me 3m. So those will be the first two parts of my parentheses, 3m and 3m. And then when I take the square root of n squared, that's just going to be plus n and minus n. Now, what do I not forget about? The greatest common factor, the 2n there. So I had to factor out that greatest common factor, then I could do the a squared minus b squared with the two terms that were left behind. All right, so say you go to 3 terms, okay? And if you have a trinomial that's an x squared plus bx plus c, this is if a is equal to 1, okay? And so this is where we do our diamond with a times c at the top, in this case 1 times whatever c is, and b in the bottom, and we get our two factors there. Right, so when I'm looking at negative 42 times 1, so negative 42 is going to be the product. The sum is going to be negative 1. Hope that's a little better. All right, so the sum is negative 1. I'm thinking 7 and 6 Who's got to be the negative there? 7 does. Right? So this is going to be x plus 6 times x minus 7. Remember, you can always switch the order of those if you need to. Right, 2w squared, 20w plus 50. What is the first thing I check for with any of these polynomials? GCF. Why GCF? Because I might think that I would want to do this the Xbox way or the slip and slide way. No. Factor out the 2. W squared plus 10w plus 25. Okay. So inside the parentheses now, a times c, 1 times 25 is 25. B is 10. I'm thinking 5 times 5, 5 plus 5. So 2 w plus 5 times w plus 5. That's one way to write it. We can also write it 2 times w plus 5 because we're multiplying that same binomial twice. Instead of first power, second power. All right? So if we have 3 terms and a is not equal to 1, we follow our slip and slide or our X box method. All right. And so let's do the X box method right here. I'm going to need a times c. And so in this case, I'm going to need 30 times 6. All right. And I know 30 times 6 is going to be, I believe, 180. The sum is negative 27. And I got to figure out 2 factors that are going to multiply to make 180. Okay, so this one's tough because that's a big number. So wait a minute, what was the first thing I was supposed to do? Look for a what? A GCF. All right, so GCF here, ooh, wait a minute. 6 is not going to be able to go into 30 and 27, but 3 will. So 3 divides into 10x squared minus 9x. Sorry about that. 9x plus 2. Oh, easier then to deal with then. That's going to make that a times c here. 10 times 2, so that's going to be 20. And then the sum is going to be negative 9. All right, so I am thinking negative 4 and negative 5. Now please do not write down x minus 4 and x minus 5. All right, because what do you have to remember? Those now go into the box that we've got to solve like a puzzle. What's going to go in first though? Now here's where you got to be careful. Use what you have in the parentheses. Don't go back to the original. So 10x squared, 2, and we'll have a negative 4x and negative 5x. All right, so because of that negative 5 there, negative 5x, I'm thinking one of these has to be 5. And I'm thinking one of them has to be 2x. Okay, so that will give me the 10x squared there. 2x times what is negative 2x? Minus 2. Checks out okay now, right? 5x times what is negative 5x? Minus 1. Negative times a negative, is that a positive 2? Yes, it is. All the boxes check out. So I'm going to have my 3 there that I can't forget about, and I'm going to have my 5x minus 2 and my 2x minus 1. All done. All right. If I wanted to use the slip and slide method, what would I do instead? Well, we took our 3 out there like that as our GCF. We had our 10x squared minus 9x plus 2. And at this point, remember what we did? We take the 10 and we slide it over, multiply it by the 2, and say that is x squared minus 9x plus 20. We would have gotten to the same 2 factors above there using the same diamond factoring method there. We would have gotten our x minus 4 and our x minus 5. But then we have to what? we have to slide the 10 back in. So I have to put the 10 over here, put the 10 over there. All right. Now what happens at that point? Simplify the fractions. This is why this method might be tougher for some of you. Divide 4 by 2, that's going to go 2. Divide 10 by 2, that's going to be 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 10 twice. All right. Now, what we have right now is x minus 2 divided by 5 times x minus 1 divided by 2. Slide back the 5 and the 2 out in front. We're going to have 5x minus 2, 2x minus 1, and don't forget your 3. There we go. Right there. That should be it. All right. And then the last one I told you about was factoring by grouping. All right. Do you remember how to deal with that? So first off, look for a GCF. In this case, because of the a squared b, there's no common factors there. And 2 and 5 are both primes, so they're not going to share a common factor other than 1. So I'm going to say, okay, just split the family up. 4 terms. And look at the first 2. What do they got in common? Well, they both have a's. Smaller one's the one that's in common with both. So I'm going to factor out an a squared. That's going to leave me with a 2a minus b. All right. Now, left side, take the sign. All right, what's in common? 10a minus 5b. Well, 5 is a factor of 10. 5 is a factor of 5, so I'm going to factor out a positive 5. And I'm going to write down what's left. 5 times what is 10a? 2a. 5 times what is minus 5b? Minus b. And then this is the moment of truth, the moment of checking right now. Are the parentheses the same? They are. Factor out the parentheses, 2a minus b, times the leftovers now. What's in the leftovers? What's on the outside of the parentheses? A squared plus 5. We put that in its own leftover parentheses. And that's my answer. All right. So I want you to try the homework assignment that I've also attached. It's going to be labeled 710 homework. All right, good luck, and don't forget to try your quizzes over the weekend on these sections, right? Factoring, very important for your success later in geometry and in algebra 2.